Unsyndicated presents Off the Air with Sean Baligian.
What is up? I told you we'd be here. I mean, honestly, did you think we'd actually figure it out? And we're actually a little bit early for all the people that were complaining yesterday about how we were late. Here we are. It is indeed an emergency pod for good reason. The Detroit Lions today punching their ticket to the NFC Championship game. 21-year-old Sean is going crazy right now. There's no other way to say that, as I'm sure many of you are as well. The Lions knock off the Buccaneers by a score of 31-23. Where to start? You know where I'm going to start? We had these conversations for many, many years, right, on the radio. What's it going to be like when they finally do it? And I was one of those guys. This goes back to when I was a little kid. And I think so many of you are probably having that same type of scenario. I had a grandfather that told me all the time, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. My father told me, you're dumb. What are you doing? All of that stuff. Okay. And at the end of the day, I've said this time and time again on the radio. This is a when, not if type of situation. And the Lions are back in the NFC Championship game. And so many times we talked about it, and I can't help but think back, like during the Millen era in particular, when things were just so despicable. There's really no other way to say that. And then it got really bad a few years ago during the Patricia era. I can't help but think of all those times we talked about what it would feel like. Well, it feels awesome. And that's why we're here right now. And it feels so good that my puppy, Cole, is even playing with his little beeping toy. I hope you could hear that. That makes for a good pod. But so many guys right now already have some, thoughts, and that's why we're here. I'm not going to sit here like I'm on the pulpit. If you have something to say, we're all sharing this together right now. I mean, make no mistake about it. Tom said, let's go fire Millen. Who can forget that? Ralph said it's all smiles. Rick, thanks for checking in, man. It's great to hear your voice again. Another Nick chimed in and said, Sean, this is stunning to me as a 50-year-old. I can envision a Super Bowl win with this regime. Absolutely, positively. That's exactly what I was going for in the opening monologue, if you will. It is not far-fetched to think about it, okay? It isn't. It's not crazy anymore. It's not, oh, you Lion fans are so cute and all of that stuff. It isn't. It's not like that. Can they beat the San Francisco 49ers? Absolutely they can. Absolutely they can. And I didn't feel that way earlier this year, okay? And if I'm going crazy right now, Lord knows you guys have never had a problem calling me out in the past. Call me out right now. I look at shaky Brock Purdy. No offense. Blake loves him. Happy birthday, by the way, Blake. Blake loves him. I look at shaky Brock Purdy. I look at, the fact that Debo may be out. Now, I'm going to say what I said yesterday. Brandon Ayuk might be the most underrated player in the National Football League. And Christian McCaffrey is a flat-out stud. But the way the Lions are doing things right now, on both sides of the ball, can I talk about Derek Barnes for a second? Okay? Not that long ago, guys, we were sitting there talking about this guy and the Ole. Remember the Ole? Who can forget the Ole? In Dallas, right? And for him to make the play today, this is unbelievable. Mike Majchrzak. Are you familiar with his work? We'll be talking to Mike a lot, our friends from Wealth Advantage. I miss Matt Patricia. True story. I just did a shot for Fox 47. And I was talking about the day that Lomas Brown and I were walking out of the stadium in 2019, and it was like the first or second week in November, and we just looked at each other and said, we have 2 more months of this. Now, little did we know a couple weeks later, Matt Patricia would have been fired, but come a long way, guys. Brad said, I was in the Millen Man March. We've come a long way. I mean, In some ways, that seems like not that long ago. And in other ways, it seems like a century ago. Adam said Lions and Bills like it should have been in 92. Oh, would that be something else? Eric said same old Lions is officially dead, win or lose. Couldn't agree with you more. I had a conversation last night with somebody on Twitter who was bringing up the whole same old Lions. And isn't this whole scenario same old Lions? Here we are, like actually rooting for the Packers to lose. Because I was one of those guys. I didn't want anything to do with the Packers. I'm not lying. The way Jordan Love is going, obviously the throw yesterday, that was something that, but that kid looks legitimate. And boy, those long-suffering Packer fans, they haven't had a franchise quarterback in forever. Anyway, I didn't want anything to do with the Packers. I'm telling you right now, as crazy as it sounds, and I know everybody, you'd rather be at home, of course. I think, I'm going to say it again, I think the San Francisco game is very winnable. I don't know if they do or not. I don't want to burst out right now and say, gosh, damn it, they're going to do it. Because right now I'm working on emotion like so many of you guys are. This is totally an emotional night, and I'm somebody I really like to try to separate the emotion and from looking at it and comparing the strengths and weaknesses, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, I can say winnable game, absolutely. This isn't like going into Washington. Now I'm showing my age. You older guys will get what I'm saying here. This isn't like going into RFK back in 92, okay? Not a lot of us thought that we were going to knock off that Washington team, okay? And if you remember, Washington pulled away in the third quarter and ended up really pulling away. That was a fantastic football team that fulfilled their destiny by knocking off Buffalo in the Super Bowl. I don't look at San Francisco like that, okay? Everything came together that year for that 91 Redskin team. Started with pounding the Lions on a Sunday night, and of course it culminated with them knocking off Buffalo in the Super Bowl. I don't look at this Frisco team like that. As good as they've been, okay? I think we've seen their weaknesses. I think we've seen shaky Brock Purdy. That's what I've just taken to calling him shaky now. And I know it drives Blake out of his mind, but see, Blake's not here tonight, so I'm going to call him shaky as much as I can. My aunt said, Grandpa might be wrong after all. True story. You've probably heard me tell this story on the radio, and I used to do it every year on Thanksgiving when I was doing the Fox show. Thanksgiving 1980, we're watching the Lions Bears at my grandma and grandpa's house. That's always where Thanksgiving was, right? And Vince Evans scores on the last play of the game for the Bears, literally the last play of the game for the Bears to tie the game. It goes to overtime. I think you guys know where this is going. Opening kickoff, Bears return it for a touchdown. My dad and my grandfather are laughing. I'm 10 years old, tears welling up in my eyes, and my grandpa and my dad are laughing. Well, at 10, I was smart enough to realize, don't go bother my dad. Because you know what my dad was going to say? The old cop was going to say, shut up, okay? So I go over to my kindly, sweet grandfather, and Grandpa pulls me up on his lap and everything. He's like, what's going on, Sean? And I was like, Grandpa, can I ask you a question? And, yeah, you can ask me whatever you want. I was like, why are you laughing? The Lions just lost. I mean, they just, the Bears scored on the last play of the game and then returned the opening kickoff in overtime for a touchdown. And my grandfather said to me, oh, Sean, you'll understand one day. This is what the Lions do to you. And honestly, I've been waiting for a moment like this, to say, no, this isn't the Lions. What the Lions have been doesn't mean that's what they're always going to be. Okay. And I've cited it 1,000 times. The Detroit Red Wings were an abomination in the National Hockey League. What happens when you get the right people in place? You put the right people in place who bring in the right people, and it turns into a championship formula. The Golden State Warriors, an absolutely abysmal franchise, a nothing franchise, right? You get the right people in place who go out and get the right people, and then all of a sudden they're the measuring stick. Now, I'm not saying that the Lions are going to be a measuring stick, okay? But as we talked about yesterday, this is a team with staying power, okay? And I think so often we sit back and go, well, maybe they're not ready this year. Why? That's what I find myself saying right now. I was one of those guys. They're going to be better. They're going to be a playoff team. But win the NFC, go to the Super Bowl, it might be premature. Based on what? How many times have we seen that? I couldn't agree with you more, Anthony. LFG. All right. Brian said, I was telling my sons the last time the Lions were here, I was their older sister's age. I wouldn't be married for 9 years yet. Still lived in West Michigan. This is so special. Last time they won the NFC NFL Championship, my dad was 14. This is gold. Cameron, hi, Sean. Hi, Cameron. Paul Evans said, go green. I will then immediately turn to this and say, go white. Mike said, find the money. Keep Ben Johnson. Nick said, remember laughing and crying at my work over Lions poetry. We have come so far. Absolutely. Take cider mill moments. Taking off in the first quarter of a game because you knew how it was going to end, right? During the tail end of the Marinelli era. When after, you remember 07, they start up 6-2 and they just fall on their face in the second half of the season. And then 2008 turned into what 2008 turned into. I started having cider mill moments. I can't do this to myself today. It's not fair. I have 2 young kids at home, and I'm not going to be that guy that walks around and my kids are going, oh, Daddy's in a bad mood again. So I put on the fake little smile and say, come on, kids, let's go get some cider and donuts. Right? I mean, and we would take out our frustration on the old radio show on the Fan through Lion poetry and haikus. By the way, we should start doing that again. Honestly, I'm thinking, you know what? We should start doing that again. We should have some submissions. But it really is one of those things. Evil Genius said, "I'd rather face the Niners than the Packers." I couldn't agree with you more, man. Honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. Packers scare me. Maybe Thanksgiving is too fresh in my mind, but the Packers scared me. I know you'd rather be at home. The atmosphere would be unbelievable. Nick said, I think this has to be the year. Can't take for granted how many more times will you have this chance again. I'm with you, Nick. But let me say this. I firmly believe that this window is open. This isn't the early 90s. That window was open and they didn't have a chance to jump through for a myriad of reasons, okay? But I think for the younger generation, for guys like you, Nick, for guys like my son, okay, as we talked about yesterday, you guys haven't seen anything. You know, you had the 11 team that was special and it was cute. And, you know, watching Dom walk around Ford Field hours before the game when I was out there early with the Fox crew was so cool with everything that he had been through in his career. To finally have that moment, win and get in was awesome. But it wasn't a very large window. And 2014, as good as that team was, 11-5, we all know how good that defense was. You ask guys in that room, and I talked to a couple of them, they knew that was their window. That window was that wide. They were able to get back in the playoffs again in 2016, as we all know. They were sitting 9-4 at one point in time, and then the bottom dropped out, and they ended up getting pounded by the Seahawks. So I think this era is different when you look at the key components on this team, okay? And they all stepped up today. I mean, whether it be Aiden, whether it be Amon-Ra, these guys stepped up. Jahmyr Gibbs, finally getting that run game going as that offensive line started to churn. More on that in a moment. That did to me what I needed. You know, this isn't a one-year thing. Yes, we'd all love it right now. Let's get it out of the way. Yes, we can finally put the number one finger up and all that stuff. But I think what it did for me personally is remind me that this is a wide open window. Now, I want to get back to that offensive line for just a second, if I may. All right. We need to have an official Frank Ragnow Appreciation Day at some point in time. Okay. I'm serious. I want a Frank Ragnow Appreciation Day where we sing songs about Frank Ragnow. We write poems about Frank Ragnow. We tell tales of Frank Ragnow's greatness. That dude is a warrior. And you know what? For just a second, forget about what he does on the football field. Forget about that for a second. What he does in the community and a lot of the unreported and unheralded things that guy does in the community. He is just all Detroit. He's one of ours. He's an absolute warrior. To have those guys on the broadcast show him the love the way they did was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Dave said, if you hit Brock, he will fold. I'm telling you right now, I feel the same way. Jeff said that Redskins Super Bowl is very underrated. Jeff, to your point, wealth advantage, by the way, get the shout out. To that point, that's one of the best football teams I've ever seen, that Washington team. Seriously. They were one-year wonders because if you remember, the next year it all kind of fell apart and Mark Rippon, everything came together that year for that team. But they were one-year wonders, and then shortly after, Joe Gibbs left. But in my lifetime, that Washington team, I didn't think for a second the Lions were going to go knock off that Washington team. Didn't think for a second, okay? Lord help me. I think the Lions have a really good chance of winning in Frisco. I do. And I think that's what makes this different. And that's what makes this such a special, special time. My boy Jason, L-Town for life, Shawnee B live. Ted said the Lions beat Tampa on to San Francisco. The ovens have never been hotter. Beth said, I wish a lot of our loved ones who were Lions fans who have passed on were here to see this. I am 100% with you. The first call I would have made tonight was to my dad, and I would have gone, hey, Dad, and he'd have gone, yeah, hey, son, did you watch the game? And I would have went, ha, and hung up the phone on him. He told me I was wasting my time for years, even when I was in the base. Why are you doing that stuff? Why are you wasting your time with that team? So that would have been a total thing. My buddy Bill, shout out to Bill, coaches change the culture. You cannot put a price tag on what that man has done. You can't. I will keep talking about it because as somebody who had been there, who had been to camps, who had been in what was, in all honesty, oftentimes like going to a funeral, walking out of that place in November and December, the life there, the belief system, the camaraderie, everything. You cannot say enough. Darren said, I'm 58. Is this real? It is. It is. This is real. It's very real. And I'm so excited. I feel like a kid again. Blake is here. He has to talk up his boy. Brockuary. Now, Blake, even you have to admit, okay? My man's shaky. He plays like that against the Lions. I like the Lions' chances. Nick said, my dad passed away 2 years ago at age 76. We had season tickets from 95 to 2020. He'd be loving this so much. Paul said, Lions F and go. Eric said, one pride, Sean. Love to see this happening. My boy, Eric down in Savannah. Chuck, the bar is high. All those little quotes, right? The Marinelli quotes. We're building something special here. Remember Mooch and Camp Happy Times? Now I can talk about all those things. It's okay. It's okay. You know, it was funny. Blake talked about all the tough moments he's had as a Michigan fan in the last 10 years. He said, it's totally cool now. We just won a national championship. And while the Lions haven't done it yet, just to get to the NFC Championship, now I don't wince and start to quiver a little bit when a lot of those things are brought up. It's so stinking cool. Dave said, happy to hear your voice again. Dave, thank you for joining. Go Lions. He said, Vegas says Lions and Niners -7 over under at 51. If you assume home field is worth 3 points, Vegas has the Niners favored by a bit more than a field goal. Let's play the game and see how it goes. Nothing to lose, maybe even a bit of confidence. We can hang around and get a shot in the second half to continue shocking the world. Rich said, I know Andy's on cloud 9. Jeff said, people underestimate how important culture is, and they finally changed the culture. 100%. It was, I'm telling you, guys, there's a reason why all the stories you've heard from other media members, not just me, they're all true. They're all true. And if you catch some of the former players in rare moments, they'll tell you the same thing. There was a cloud that hung over this franchise. I'm not bashing because this is a day to celebrate this franchise, but there was a cloud that hung over this franchise, whether we want to admit it or not. And I love this team as much as anybody else. And you know what? The skies are clearing. And it's pretty stinking cool. Josh said, Dan Campbell, Prophet, kneecaps, be fearing Lions, Honolulu Blue. I love it. Chuck said, 91, I was 12. My dad, who has passed now, said, don't get used to this. It's still surreal for me. Damon said, I'll be honest with you. I stopped being a Lions fan in 86, but to see them on this run is nothing short of amazing. Am I drinking the Kool-Aid and eating the cornbread? Let's just say I'm taking a swig and nibbling on it. Damon, we talked about that yesterday, and this is one area that I disagree with Coach Campbell and a lot of the fans out there, okay? This is a franchise that hasn't given people reason for hope. Hope is not a strategy. Speaking of old comments from coaches. Remember Coach Schwartz? My old partner, Tom Kowalski, who I couldn't help but think of today. And Killer, I know you're watching this and you got a big old smile on your face as you're pounding some Bud Lights down. We love that quote. Hope is not a strategy. And I think this is a franchise that talked about doing things and talked about what they were going to be and what they wanted to do, et cetera, et cetera. They haven't built a large cachet in regards to the trust department, okay? So I have no beef with people like you, Damon, and I'm not saying this to be PC. I don't blame you. I don't blame you for not wanting to buy in. I don't. Now, if you're one of those guys and you don't want to buy in right now that's on you. In years gone by, it was on this franchise for what they did to us, for what they did to you, for what they did to me. If you didn't want to buy in, I get it. I do. I get it. They didn't give you much reason for hope. Right now, based on what they're doing in this present day, going to the NFC Championship game, and as so many of you have brought up in this chat, what they have done in building this core nucleus and having the identity that they have, if you don't want to trust them now, that's on you. I can't help you out anymore. I can't. So if you're one of those guys, hey, God bless you. I'm never going to tell people who they should root for, how they should root, boo, don't boo, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, I can't help you anymore. I don't need to try to win you over. None of the guys in the chat need to try to win you over. The team's winning you over by virtue of what they've been doing. I'm going to wrap this up because we all seriously want to go back to watching that game. Gerald said Ragnow is a warrior. I couldn't agree with you more. Ragnow and always. Paul said having a meet a day for Ragnow would be perfect. Frank, you have an open invitation over here. I think you guys know we put on some barbecues. I will have a Frank Ragnow day for sure. Brian said, oh my gosh, this is so surreal, man. My buddy Gerald over in Canada, go Habs. Tough one last night. Niners looked average last night. Lions have a puncher's chance. My cousin James, Quinn, Patricia, nearly 3 years ago. Look where they are now. Cannot believe what they've been able to do. Couldn't agree with you more. My shovel is sharp. Who can forget that? Yeah, see, we can have fun with that. Jerron Bon Jovi. Do you remember the Dick Geron era? The guy was quoting Bon Jovi songs all the time. We've got each other, and that's a lot. I mean, that was real. A National Football League franchise. We're having guys like that. We're going to get out of here. Jen said, crushing it, Baligian. Thank you. Ralph said, nice job, Sean. Start extending and resigning those 3 offensive linemen. Now it's the heart and soul of the team. And when you get into the NFC Championship, Joe, we're going to give you the last word. Anything can happen. Listen, enjoy the second half. We're going to talk this week. Obviously, a lot about the NFC Championship. My boy Blake's going to be with us. I got some hockey stuff. Lord knows there's a lot of hockey stuff. As I said, we've got a ton of stuff here on Off the Air, and there's going to be other channels starting as well. I promise you. In the meantime, enjoy the second half of the game and go Lions. Enjoy this, fans. We've been through so much bleep, 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 bleep. I promised I wouldn't swear. Enjoy this, okay? In the meantime, we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Off the Air with Sean Baligian, featuring Sean Baligian and Blake Majchrzak. Produced by Todd Losey and Blake Majchrzak. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Play It Loud by Jam Studio. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Off the Air with Sean Baligian on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Got something to say to Sean? Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.